OK, let's take a look at our newspaper front pages on this Monday morning. And here's the Daily Mail. It's leading with, after researcher is arrested for spying, Rishi confronts Chinese PM while MPs condemn it.
Let's have a look at the Mirror. Terror on the streets, new dog attack, chaos makes the Home Secretary take action on this one. I want to talk about this throughout the programme. Is it bad dogs, bad owners? Are there certain breeds that are just, you know, trained to do bad things?
And we have a debate on that, don't we? 7:25, something like that. Let us know your views and we'll get a hot debate around the whole topic there. Here's the Express leading with our very own Alistair Stewart's revelation that he's suffering with early dementia. Really brave and tearful interview yesterday here on GBNEWS with the excellent Camilla Tominey. And we wish Alistair all the very best, of course.
And the Star goes on the weather situation. They're calling it the Great British Bunk Off, though, because millions apparently are going to skip work today as the heat wave continues over Britain. But Claire Purcell and Christopher Biggins are not bunking work today. Well, Claire's definitely not. Biggins is dressed as if he's about to...
He might be going somewhere sunny afterwards.
I mean, you can see the temptation, Christopher, can you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's... We've had such a bad summer. So any bit of sun now is just fabulous. I mean, you just want to get out there.
But it's not sunny. Eamonn was making the point. It's hot and it's muggy and the air is thick and you do anything and it's sweaty, but it's not, you know, lovely sort of Mediterranean dry sun, is it?
No, but it's better than it has been.
True, it's better than nothing.
And you know, those sleepless nights are coming again, which is awful. I mean, we've got a huge fan above our bed.
And who is he or she? Let me ask you this.
It's you and Eamonn, it's you.
If only. Biggins, let me ask you this. Being an actor and going through a hot day, and then knowing you've got to go to theatre that night, and a lot of theatres, particularly around London, they're not well air-conditioned or whatever. Is that something that you could dread?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because we went last week to probably one of the most wonderful theatres from that point of view in London, Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. Oh. And if you get a good night there, it's perfect. I mean, you know, it can be hot, but there's somehow a magical occasion that happens. We went to see Le Cage aux Folles, which was brilliant. And it was just wonderful because the evening was gorgeous. You know, one was having some rosé wine, and it was a good feeling. I agree with you, some of the theatres in London are hideous.
But to work in, to get yourself
it's terrible. It's terrible. You know, you put the costume on and
you don't even understand what you've got to go through to suffer for your art.
Nobody does.
But anyway,
and this is really sad.
If you're bunking off work, we'll keep you anonymous. Just tell us your story. Claire, let's talk about Morocco first of all, which is it's just awful. It's just awful. Anybody that's travelled to Marrakesh and knows how beautiful it is in the Atlas Mountains and all that sort of thing. But it would really frighten me off about ever going back.
And I think that's what we've seen this summer, a number of big events like this. But this is their worst earthquake for 120 years. It registered at 6.8 magnitude. It was just southwest of Marrakesh itself. And, of course, it hit all of those small villages up in towards the Atlas Mountains where help is going to be very, very hard to get. And I think it's heartbreaking. Such a beautiful city, as you say. I mean, it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for some of it.
But the construction will not be of the same standard as you would expect in many cities and things.
It's a 12th century built city. It is going to be crumbling, and you can see that all of the pictures across most of the newspapers will have the massive cracks in buildings. There's a tower of a mosque which is looking like it's going to fall any second, but people have lost their homes. So I don't think we need to look at the effect on the tourists because they can go home, but the architecture that is now lost, the city walls in Marrakesh which are falling down.
But I heard so many stories about people who worked in Marrakesh, which was about 50 kilometres away from the epicentre, and they couldn't get communication with their families in the Atlas Mountains, and they head across blocked roads and whatever, and they get out to their family home. just to simply pull their relatives' dead bodies from under the rubble.
And that has echoes of what happened in Turkey earlier in the year. And to have two of these earthquakes right on our doorstep, really, here in Europe, of this magnitude.
I didn't even know there was a fault line between Europe and Africa.
Well, it's just we're in the zone now. Here we are, Monday morning. This happened 11 o'clock Friday night, where, to be honest, if there were people trapped, it's life or death now for people.
Right.
And they just don't have the resources there to try and retrieve many who will be dying in the worst possible way. It's a horror story. Pleased to say British supporters heading that way today. British Red Cross very much involved as well. And we're sending, I think, 60 search and rescue operators as well. But
it is absolutely tragic. And the story you mentioned about that man who went to rescue his family, it took him days. He walked 11 miles because there was no transport. He couldn't get through. And then to find, first thing he found was his father's leg.
Yeah.
And, it must be so traumatic.
Awful.
For the families there. It must
You know,
be just awful.
I think sometimes, Christopher, I look at other stories and things that are going to be important to us, but they're first world problems. We're not facing things like this. I mean, I want to bring you on to this Royal Commission for High Streets. This is front page of the Daily Telegraph, talking about a Royal Commission is needed if we're to save the high streets. I mean, I don't think there's any will to save the high streets at all. I say that. I'm quite disheartened about the whole thing. I just think people, local authorities, whoever, let them go to rack and ruin. And when you see shops like, is it Wilko?
Yeah, Wilko.
Closing up, and what are they replaced by? Woolworths, what is it replaced by? HMV, what are they replaced by? We've had the glory days of the high street, probably in the 80s or whatever. But what way do you see this story?
Well, Neil and myself, my partner, we travel around England, and the first thing we say whenever we get anywhere, look, another shop closed, and there are hundreds on the high street, and it's soul destroying. And now, I mean, John Lewis's, I think they're in real trouble because I remember going to John Lewis's all the time, but unfortunately, we can now order things.
Yeah.
And they come sometimes the day you order it, if not the day after. It is so convenient, which is awful.
Yeah.
Because we are causing the downfall of the high street.
And the thing is, Claire, I don't think this is just about commerce. It's not just about business and people making money. We're going to realise too late that a high street is about community, and it's about people mixing, and it's about tackling loneliness and tackling depression and whatever. I mean, to walk down, I'll say this, if I walk down my high street, people will say hello to me, they'll pull me into shop, they'll talk to me, there'll be people you didn't even know you knew, and socialisation is going to go.
And that's right. And for most people, that is their hub. That is where they've always shopped. Their families have shopped there. People know you from growing up in a certain area, and you're going to miss that. And for some people, some elderly people, or some people who are vulnerable with mental health issues, it is their only contact with an individual is if they go into a newspaper shop or they go into a local butcher's, for example. That could be the only person they speak to that day, and we lose that. And it's a really, really sad state of affairs. But I think Biggins is right. We have all contributed to this with online shopping. So the downfall of the high street is not just at local authorities, and there is some blame there with parking charges, with rent increases and all of the rest of it. But we all play a part in this too. And I think that we need to look at what we do with the infrastructure you have on a high street. And I know that in my local area, we're opening up sort of warm spaces and community hubs. And there's a brilliant men's community hub that has started up, specifically because they had no space to go and talk to anybody. So a men's club has started up to give those guys the space that they can just go and talk without having to worry about it. And I think that we may see more of that kind of thing come up, but it does rely upon councils not charging the earth for the use of a building.
I want to talk about this devil dog story. It's on the front of The Sun this morning. And I don't know if you saw the footage over the weekend where you could hear the little girl screaming and then the footage of the dog running across and attacking the man. Home Secretary saying she wants to outlaw these dogs, Claire. I mean, there are certain breeds that when I see them, I do feel frightened and I do sometimes cross out of the way, especially as I have kids who love dogs and, you know, just gravitate towards them. It's very difficult to navigate as a parent, but you know, is this the fault of the dog or the owners, and is banning them the answer?
It's like having a car like a Fiat 500 or whatever, and having something that is a
that's what we've got.
A part what?
A Fiat 500.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, which is nice and tame and whatever, or some beast of a power.
Oh, I see
car.
what you mean.
Yes. The monster. So there's no need for it. I mean, these dogs are bred to fight, bred to kill. And what Isabel was saying, if one of her children go over and pet a dog, we're not going to say it bites, but if it does bite, no human is going to be able to part their jaws and get their
my kids
jaws.
Squeal when they say, "Ooh," and that excites the dog. And it's. I mean, look, I have to take responsibility for my children, but you know, this girl sounds like she was just minding her own business. It's awful.
It was horrific. The video footage was absolutely horrendous. And the majority of the time, it is deed, not breed, that you need to worry about.
Nice line.
However, you've got the rise of these crossbreed dogs, which the Kennel Club doesn't see as a breed itself, and it is a mutation. People have put this fighting machine together, if you like. They are frightening. They are bred to fight, they are bred to defend. Their jaws are 4 times more powerful than perhaps they would be in a normal sort of bulldog-type breed. So I think that we need to look very, very carefully at these. I'm normally not in favour of banning things, but I think that this is out of control.
Listen, I tell you, if you go to Instagram and you log on to and you start following people who have dog websites and things like this, you will see that there is probably no more loving animal on the planet than a dog. And why? I mean, we could do this with humans. They're breeding abominations, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Well, people are doing dog fights still, which I find...
Of course.
That's absolutely appalling. How can that be happening?
OK, hold that thought. We'll be back with you guys shortly. A reminder of the top stories with the time just 6:45.
So 22 years on from the attack that changed the world, we look back on September the 11th, and GB News has learned that the terror threat in the UK is still as real as ever.
An inmate has been stabbed at Wandsworth Prison just days after terror suspect Daniel Khalif escaped. So the question being asked, is our prison system fit for purpose?
And as the Prime Minister returns from the G20 summit in India, more details come out about the Westminster staff as alleged to be spying for China.
This spying situation, we're going to talk to a guest very, very shortly, an espionage expert and a former KGB intelligence officer with all of this. But Claire, just a quick word about if Westminster has been infiltrated, why is this of so much use to countries like the Chinese?
It's always going to be of interest to countries like China. You want to know what conversations are being had, which individuals are having conversations about China. It doesn't need to be necessarily secret, eyes-only information. It could just be little bits of intelligence, and that generally is what spying is.
Like, is their marriage happy? Are they in financial trouble? So they're under influence.
It's all of the soft information.
Here's Alexander.